The alarm was so loud it hurt. Red lights flashed everywhere on the mining station. Daehyun ran down the metal hallway, his boots making heavy sounds on the floor. Behind him, 23 people followed. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they trusted him to get them out alive. The station was breaking apart. They could all feel it. The wall shook. Pieces of the ceiling fell down. Smoke filled the air and made it hard to breathe. Something had gone very wrong with the special rocks they were mining. Now those rocks were exploding one section at a time. Soon the whole station would be gone. Daehyun was a lieutenant in the Space Navy. He had trained for moments like this. But training was different from reality. In training, everyone always made it out. In reality, sometimes they didn't. Mireille was an engineer. She worked on the station's machines. She ran up next to Daehyun and grabbed his arm. Her voice came through the radio in his helmet. The regular communication system had stopped working. Pod 3 is broken. We cannot use it. We have to go to Pod 6 instead. Daehyun nodded. He changed direction without slowing down. The group followed him. They went through a small tunnel that workers used to fix the station. The tunnel was shaking. Metal groaned all around them. It sounded like the station was screaming. They reached Pod 6. It was a small ship designed to carry people away from the station in an emergency. Daehyun stood by the door and counted as everyone went inside. 1, 2, 3. He counted each person. His heart was beating fast. 14, 15, 16. Almost everyone was safe. 21, 22, 23. Everyone was there. Daehyun felt a moment of relief. Then his radio made a sound. Someone was calling. This is Hyun. I am in Cargo Bay 12. The doors closed and locked when the coolant system broke. I cannot open them. I am stuck. Hyun was a pilot. She was good at her job. She was also calm even now. Too calm. Her voice told Daehyun that she had accepted her fate. She thought she was going to die. Daehyun felt cold inside. His hands started to shake. He took a deep breath and pressed the talk button on his radio. Hyun, how far away are you from the nearest door I can open? It would take 4 minutes to run there. But Lieutenant, you do not have 4 minutes. The reactor will explode in 90 seconds. You need to take those people and leave now. Everyone in the pod was looking at Daehyun. Some looked shocked. Some looked sad. They all knew what Hyun was saying. Sometimes in space, people died. It was the hard truth of working among the stars. You couldn't always save everyone. Close the pod door, Hyun said. That is an order, Lieutenant. Daehyun's hand moved toward the launch button. Everything he learned in the military told him to obey. Save the many. Accept losing the few. It was simple math. 23 lives were worth more than one life. Any computer would make the same choice. Any logical person would agree. But humans were not computers. Humans were not always logical. There was something else inside Daehyun. Something that remembered why humans had left Earth and traveled to the stars. Something that said one simple thing. We do not leave our people behind. He turned to Mireille. His voice was quiet but firm. You are in charge now. If I am not back in 90 seconds, you launch the pod without me. Mireille's eyes went wide. She reached for him. Daehyun, no. You cannot. But he was already gone. He jumped out of the pod and ran back into the dying station. Behind him, he heard Mireille shouting. He heard other voices too, but he did not stop. He could not stop. The station was worse now. Fire burned in places where fire should not be. The floor had holes in it. Daehyun had to jump over some holes and go around others. His special boots helped him stick to the metal floor, but only when there was metal floor to stick to. He could hear Hyun on the radio. She was not talking to him. She was crying. She was saying she was sorry. Sorry for getting stuck. Sorry for making him risk his life. Sorry for being a problem. Daehyun wanted to tell her she was not a problem. She was a person. She was someone who had a family waiting at home. She was someone who made everyone laugh with her bad jokes. She was someone who brought food to share with the crew on holidays. She was real and alive and worth saving. But he did not have time to talk. He needed all his breath for running. 60 seconds left. Maybe less. The reactor was getting hotter. When it got too hot, it would explode. The explosion would be so big it would destroy everything. The station would be gone. Anyone still on the station would be gone too. It would be fast, at least. They would not feel pain. Daehyun pushed those thoughts away. He focused on running. Left turn, right turn, jump over fallen beam, tuck under broken pipe. His body moved automatically. His training took over. He had practiced emergency movements 1,000 times. Now that practice might save a life. 40 seconds left. He could see cargo bay 12 ahead. The door was sealed shut. It was made of thick metal designed to contain fires and leaks. It would take heavy equipment to open it. Equipment he did not have. Equipment there was no time to get. Through the small window in the door, he saw Hyun. She saw him too. Her face changed from sad to horrified. She started hitting the window with her hands. "What are you doing? Go back! Save yourself, please!" Daehyun pulled out his plasma torch. It was a tool used for cutting through metal. It was meant for repair work, not for cutting through blast doors. But it was all he had. He turned it on and pressed it against the door. The torch made a high screaming sound. The metal started to glow red, then orange, then white. It was melting. But it was melting too slowly. 20 seconds left. The math was simple and cruel. At this rate, he would finish cutting in about 40 seconds. He needed to finish in 20. It was impossible. Daehyun did not care about impossible. He turned the torch up to maximum power. The manual said never to do this. It would burn out the power cell. The torch would die after just a few seconds, but a few seconds at maximum power might be enough. The torch burned brighter and hotter. The metal melted faster. Hyun was still hitting the window, still crying, still begging him to leave. He ignored her. His whole world narrowed down to the line of melting metal. Just a little more. Just a little further. 10 seconds left. The torch died. The power cell was empty. Daehyun had cut through most of the door, but not all of it. There was still a section of solid metal holding it closed. He looked at it. He looked at his gloved hands. He made a decision. He grabbed the superheated metal with both hands and pulled. The gloves were designed to protect against heat, but only normal heat. Not metal that glowed white hot. He felt pain immediately. Terrible burning pain that shot up his arms. He screamed and kept pulling. The metal bent. The door started to open. Hyun squeezed through the gap and grabbed Daehyun. She pulled him away from the door. He was trying to hold his hands, but they hurt too much to touch. She put his arm over her shoulder and started running. He ran with her. 3 seconds left. They could see the pod ahead. They could see Mirai in the doorway, waving at them to hurry. Behind them, they could hear a sound like thunder. The reactor was breaking apart. They dove through the pod door. Mirai hit the emergency launch button. The pod shot away from the station like a bullet from a gun. Through the window, they watched as the mining station turned into a ball of white light. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Then the light faded. The station was gone. But all 24 of them were alive. Daehyun looked at his hands. They were badly burned. He would need surgery. Months of recovery. He might never be able to use them the same way again. He looked up and saw Hyun watching him. She was crying again, but different now. These were not tears of fear. These were tears of gratitude and guilt and relief all mixed together. "I told you to save yourself," she said quietly. Daehyun smiled despite the pain. His voice was rough when he spoke, I know. But I am human. We are very bad at following orders like that. The rescue ship took 6 hours to reach them. 6 long hours floating in the small escape pod. Daehyun sat in the corner, his hands wrapped in emergency medical bandages. The bandages had medicine in them that stopped the pain a little bit. But only a little bit. Mostly, his hands just hurt. The medical team came as soon as the rescue ship docked with their pod. They looked at Daehyun's hands and their faces became serious. They put his hands in special containers filled with a cold blue liquid. The liquid would keep his hands from getting worse until they could do surgery. "You are very lucky," one doctor said. Another few minutes and we could not have saved them. Daehyun did not feel lucky. His hands felt like they were still on fire. But at least he was alive. At least Hyun was alive. At least everyone was alive. They took him to the medical room on the rescue ship. It was small but clean. There were machines everywhere that beeped and hummed. The doctors did some quick procedures to stabilize his injuries. Then they told him he would need months of surgery and recovery, months before his hands would work properly again. The captain of the rescue ship came to see him that evening. The captain was not human. He was Krillian. The Krillians were an old species. They had been traveling in space for 40,000 years. Humans had only been in space for a few hundred years. To the Krillians, humans were like babies. The captain's name was Bowman. He had 4 eyes and skin that looked like gray stone. He walked on two legs like humans, but his body was taller and thinner. When he spoke, a small device on his chest translated his clicking sounds into human language. The translation was perfect. It even had the right emotion in it. I have read the reports about what happened, Bowman said. He stood next to Daehyun's bed. His four eyes looked at the human with an expression that was hard to read. I do not understand your decision. Daehyun looked up at the alien captain. What do you mean? You risked 23 lives to save one life. The mathematics say this was wrong. You had a 90% chance of dying. If you died, the pod might not have launched in time. Everyone could have died, all for one person. How do you explain this choice? Daehyun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I did not risk 23 lives to save one. I saved 24 lives. All of them. But the probability... I do not care about probability, Daehyun interrupted. His voice was stronger now. We do not leave our people behind. That is who we are. Bauman's translator was silent for a long time. The alien captain seemed to be thinking hard. Finally, he spoke again. This is not efficient. It is not logical. Your species does this often. We have seen it many times. In wars, your soldiers stay with wounded friends even when they should retreat. In disasters, your people refuse to leave until every child is found. You lose resources this way. You lose people. Sometimes, yes, Daehyun agreed. But we do not lose ourselves. The Krillian captain tilted his head to one side. Humans had learned this meant a Krillian was very interested in something. My people have existed for 40,000 of your years. We have watched many species grow and die across the galaxy. Do you know what all the dead species had in common? Daehyun shook his head. They were efficient. They were logical. They made the mathematically correct choices every time, Bowman said. His voice through the translator sounded sad. And slowly they forgot that numbers used to be names. They forgot that surviving is not the same as living. They survived themselves right into extinction. They became empty and alone. The captain put one of his long-fingered hands on Daehyun's shoulder. The touch was gentle. You humans are young. You are reckless. By all mathematical models, you should not last another 1,000 years. But I am starting to think you will outlive us all. Because you refused to learn the lesson that killed every other species. What lesson? Daehyun asked. That some losses are acceptable. Those words stayed with Daehyun for a long time. Even after Bowman left. Even after the doctors came back to check on him. Even as he finally fell asleep from exhaustion and pain medication, some losses are acceptable. It was what every military in history had believed. It was what every logical person understood. You could not save everyone. Sometimes you had to let some people die so that others could live. It was simple math. It was basic strategy. It was common sense, but it was also wrong. At least it felt wrong to Daehyun. Because the moment you decided some people were acceptable to lose, you stopped seeing them as people. They became numbers, statistics, percentages. And once they were just numbers, it became easier and easier to let them die. Yun came to visit him the next day. She looked tired. Her eyes were red from crying. She sat in the chair next to his bed and did not say anything for a long time. She just looked at his bandaged hands. I am sorry, she finally said. Her voice was so quiet he almost could not hear it. For what? For your hands. For getting trapped. For making you risk your life. Daehyun shook his head. You did not make me do anything. I chose to come back for you, but I told you not to. I ordered you to leave, I know. And if the situation was reversed, would you have left me? Hyun was quiet. They both knew the answer. She would have done the same thing. Any human would have. It was not about logic or mathematics. It was about something deeper, something that made them human. The doctors say you might not be able to work in space anymore, Hyun said. Your hands might not heal completely. You might have to retire, maybe, but you are alive. That is worth it. How can you say that? How can my life be worth your career? Worth your hands? Daehyun looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw someone who brought cookies to the crew even though they tasted bad. Someone who made terrible jokes that somehow always made people laugh. Someone who had a sister waiting for her back on Earth. Someone who was real and alive and valuable beyond any calculation. Because you are not a number, he said. You are a person. And people are always worth saving. Hyun started crying again. But she was also smiling. It was a strange expression, both sad and happy at the same time. She reached out and gently touched one of his bandaged hands. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being stubborn. Thank you for being human. Over the next few weeks, Daehyun had several surgeries. The doctors rebuilt his hands piece by piece. They used human medical technology mixed with alien science. The Krillians knew things about healing that humans were still learning. Bowman personally made sure that Daehyun got the best possible care. We owe you this, the alien captain said. You taught us something important. The least we can do is help you heal. The story of what happened spread quickly through the fleet. Other ships heard about the lieutenant who ran back into an exploding station. They heard about the impossible rescue. They heard about the human who refused to accept the acceptable loss. Some people said he was brave. Some said he was stupid. Some said he was lucky. But everyone agreed on one thing: he was very, very human. And across the galaxy, other species started to take notice. The young, reckless humans who had only recently joined the galactic community were doing something the older species had forgotten how to do. They were caring more about people than about numbers. They were choosing compassion over efficiency. They were holding on when logic said to let go. It was inefficient. It was illogical. It was dangerous and expensive, and sometimes it failed. But it was also beautiful, and it was something the galaxy had not seen in a very long time. Daehyun did not know it yet, but his choice to run back into that station would change more than just his own life. It would start a ripple that would spread across the stars. It would remind a cold, logical galaxy what it meant to be alive. All because one human refused to let go. 3 months passed. Daehyun's hands healed slowly but well. The doctors were surprised. They said his recovery was much faster than expected. Maybe it was the alien technology. Maybe it was his own determination. Maybe it was both. He could use his hands again now. They still hurt sometimes, especially when it was cold. There were scars all over them. But they worked. He could hold things. He could write. He could do his job. That was all that mattered. The Navy did not force him to retire. Instead, they gave him a medal. They also gave him a new assignment. He was going to teach at the Interspecies Naval Academy on Titan. Titan was one of Saturn's moons. It was where young officers from all species learned to work together. But before he started teaching, they asked him to give a speech. Admiral Yoonji called him into her office to tell him. You need to tell your story, she said. She was older than Daehyun, with gray hair and kind eyes. She had been in space for 30 years. She had seen a lot of things. The students need to hear what happened. They need to understand why you made that choice. Daehyun did not want to give a speech. He did not think he was special. He had just done what felt right. But Admiral Yoonji insisted. She said it was important, so he agreed. The day of the speech arrived. Daehyun stood backstage at the Academy auditorium. He could hear the crowd on the other side of the curtain. There were hundreds of students out there. Humans and Krillians and Saurians and a dozen other species, all of them waiting to hear from him. His hands were shaking. Not from pain, but from nervousness. What was he supposed to say to them? How could he explain something that he barely understood himself? Hyun was there. She had come to support him. She walked up and put a hand on his shoulder. Just tell them the truth, she said. Tell them what happened. Tell them why. What if they do not understand? Then you will teach them. That is what teachers do. Daehyun nodded. He took a deep breath. Then he walked onto the stage. The auditorium was huge. Every seat was filled. Daehyun looked out at all those faces and felt very small. But then he saw Hyun in the front row. She smiled at him. That helped. He walked to the microphone. His footsteps echoed in the quiet room. Everyone was watching him, waiting. I am not a hero, he began. His voice sounded strange through the speakers. Too loud and too soft at the same time. I am not special. I am just a human who made a choice that was completely crazy. Some of the human students laughed a little. The alien students just watched. Their faces did not show if they understood or not. When I ran back into that station, I knew the mathematics. I knew the probability of success. I knew that I only had 60 seconds to reach someone who was 4 minutes away. I knew that if I failed, I would die. I knew I was risking my life and maybe the lives of everyone in that escape pod. He paused. He looked down at his scarred hands. Every alien I have talked to since then has asked me the same question. Why risk so much for one person? And I have thought about this a lot. I have realized something important. They are asking the wrong question. Now even the aliens seemed interested. They leaned forward slightly. The question is not why I went back. The question is, how could I not? Hyun was not a number. She was not a statistic. She was not an acceptable loss. She was a real person. His voice got stronger as he spoke. She was someone who made us laugh with her terrible jokes. She was someone who had a sister waiting for her at home. She was someone who brought food to share with us even though she was not a good cook. She was real. And the moment you start deciding which real people are acceptable to lose, you have already lost something much more important than a tactical advantage. Daehyun looked at the alien students. I know many of your species value logic, efficiency, and there is wisdom in that. There really is. But there is also wisdom in knowing that some things cannot be measured. Loyalty, friendship, the refusal to abandon someone just because the numbers say you should. He looked back at Hyun. She was crying quietly. She told me to save myself. She told me to leave her. And I refused. Not because I am brave, not because I am special, but because I am human. And we humans do not know how to let go. We do not know how to leave our people behind. Even when we should. Even when it makes no sense. Even when the mathematics say it is wrong. The silence in the auditorium was complete. No one moved. No one spoke. Daehyun wondered if he had said something wrong. If they did not understand, then something happened. A Krillian student in the back row stood up. He started making clicking sounds. That was how Krillians showed approval. It was like clapping for humans. Another Krillian student stood and did the same. Then another. Then a Saurian student stood and made a hissing sound, which was their version of applause. Soon the entire auditorium was standing. Hundreds of students from dozens of species, all of them showing approval in their own ways. The sound was strange and wonderful. Clicking and hissing and chirping and clapping all mixed together. Daehyun stood there not knowing what to do. He had not expected this. He looked at Hyun. She was standing too, clapping and crying at the same time. He saw Admiral Yoonji at the side of the stage. She was smiling and nodding. She looked proud. After the speech, many students came to talk to him. They asked questions. They shook his hand. They thanked him. But one conversation stood out. A young Krillian cadet approached. His name was Victar. He looked nervous. Sir, I have a question, Victar said through his translator. Of course, my people have been in space for 40,000 years. We have survived wars and disasters and famines. We survived because we were smart. We made the logical choices. We accepted necessary losses, but I am starting to think we lost something along the way. Something important. Daehyun nodded. What do you think you lost? I do not know the word in your language. It is the thing that makes you care about one person as much as you care about many people. The thing that makes you willing to risk everything for someone even when it does not make sense. Compassion, Daehyun said. Or maybe loyalty. Or maybe just humanity. Victar made a clicking sound that his translator turned into a laugh. It is funny that you call it humanity, as if only humans have it, but I think you are right. I think we lost our humanity. Even though we are not humans, you can get it back, Daehyun said. It is not too late. How? Start by remembering that numbers used to be names, that statistics used to be people, that every loss is unacceptable. Even when you cannot prevent it, care more than you should, risk more than is logical. Hold on when everyone tells you to let go. Victar was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Thank you, sir. I will remember this. I will try to be more human." After Victar left, Hyun came over. She had been waiting patiently. That was a good speech, she said. It felt awkward. The best speeches usually do. But you said what needed to be said. You reminded everyone that we are not machines. We are people. And people matter. Daehyun looked around the auditorium. Students were still talking in small groups. He could see humans and aliens mixed together, discussing what they had heard. Something had changed in this room today. Something small but important. Maybe his choice to run back into that station had not been crazy after all. Maybe it was exactly what the galaxy needed to see. A reminder that there was more to life than cold calculations. That sometimes the illogical choice was the right choice. That holding on was better than letting go. The ripple was spreading, slowly, quietly, but surely. And it all started because one human refused to accept the unacceptable. 10 years passed. Daehyun was no longer a lieutenant. He was now a commander. He still taught at the academy sometimes, but he also led missions in space again. His hands worked perfectly. You could barely see the scars anymore unless you looked closely. A lot had changed in those 10 years. More aliens were joining human crews. More humans were joining alien ships. They were learning from each other. The galaxy was becoming more connected, and slowly, very slowly, the old ways were changing. Daehyun now commanded a ship called the Unity. It was the first ship built by humans and aliens working together. The crew was mixed too. Humans, Krillians, Saurians, and others. They all wore the same uniform. They all followed the same rules. They were all part of the same team. His first officer was a Krillian named Victor. Yes, the same Victor who had talked to him after the speech at the academy. Victor had graduated at the top of his class. He had specifically requested to serve under Daehyun. He said he wanted to learn the human way of doing things. One day they received a distress call. It came from a mining station in the Kepler system. Raiders had attacked. 30 crew members were trapped. The raiders had damaged the station badly. It would collapse soon. Daehyun looked at the report on his screen. The numbers were not good. The station was far away. By the time they got there, it might be too late. And even if they made it in time, the raiders might still be there. They would have to fight while also doing a rescue. It was dangerous. Very dangerous. He called up the probability calculations. The computer analyzed everything. Distance, time, ship speed, raider strength, station stability. It ran millions of calculations in seconds. Then it gave its answer. Probability of successful rescue, 17%. Probability of ship damage, 73%. Probability of crew casualties, 41%. Recommendation: evacuate nearby stations and write off the mining outpost as a loss. Write off as a loss. That meant leave them to die. Let the raiders win, except that 30 people would not be saved. It was the logical choice, the smart choice, the choice that every calculation supported. Daehyun looked at his first officer. Victor was studying the same data. His 4 eyes moved quickly across the screens. His face was unreadable, as alien faces often were. "Orders, Commander?" Victor asked. Before Daehyun could answer, Victor continued speaking. "For the record, sir, I have already calculated the optimal rescue approach. It is not advisable. We would be risking a ship worth billions of credits and a crew of 200 people, all for 30 miners." It was exactly what Bowman had said to Daehyun 10 years ago. The same logic, the same mathematics, the same cold calculation. Daehyun waited. He knew Victor was not finished, and Daehyun asked, "And a human once taught me that some mathematics are worth ignoring." Victor's translator made his clicking sound almost like a smile. "Helm, set course for Kepler system. Maximum speed. Tactical, prepare all weapons. Communications, send a message to those miners." "What should the message say, sir?" the communications officer asked. She was human, young, probably fresh out of the academy. Victor looked at Daehyun. Something passed between them. Understanding, respect, shared purpose. "Tell them that help is coming. Tell them that no one is getting left behind. Not today, not ever. Not on our watch." The bridge came alive with activity. Officers moved to their stations. The ship's engines powered up. Within minutes, they were racing toward the Kepler system at maximum speed. It would take them 3 hours to get there. 3 hours that those miners might not have. But they were going anyway, because that was what the Unity crew did. That was what this new, mixed generation of space travelers did. They did not accept acceptable losses. They held on. They refused to let go. During the journey, Victor came to Daehyun's ready room. The ready room was a small office next to the bridge where the captain could work or think. Daehyun was reviewing the tactical plans when Victor entered. "You did not give the order," Victor said. "I gave it instead. I hope that was acceptable." "It was perfect," Daehyun said. "You are learning well. I have been thinking about what you said at the academy, about how we Krillians lost something over our 40,000 years. I think I finally understand what it was." "What was it?" "We forgot how to be afraid of the wrong things. We became afraid of loss, of failure, of waste. So we protected ourselves by not caring too much. We turned people into numbers so it would not hurt when we lost them. But that fear killed something inside us. It made us efficient but empty." Victor sat down. It was a very human gesture. Krillians usually preferred to stand. You humans are afraid of different things. You are afraid of abandoning people, of breaking trust, of becoming the kind of species that values numbers over names. And that fear keeps you alive in a way my people have forgotten. Daehyun nodded slowly. He had never thought about it that way, but Victor was right. When I was young, I thought courage meant not being afraid, Daehyun said. But I was wrong. Courage means being afraid of the right things, and then doing the right thing anyway. What are you afraid of right now? Victor asked. That we will not reach those miners in time. That some of my crew will be hurt or killed in the rescue. That I will have to choose between saving some people and losing others. But you are going anyway. Yes. That is what I am learning. To be afraid and go anyway. To care even when it hurts. To hold on even when logic says to let go. They made it to the Kepler system with 20 minutes to spare. The mining station was barely holding together. Parts of it were already breaking off and floating away. The raiders were still there, but they fled when they saw a military ship arrive. They were bullies, not warriors. The rescue took 16 minutes. It was not easy. The station was unstable. Rescue shuttles had to dock very carefully. If they bumped too hard, the whole structure might collapse. But the crew worked perfectly together. Humans and aliens coordinated like they had been doing this for years. With 4 minutes left before total collapse, the last miner was brought aboard. The shuttles flew back to the Unity. As soon as they docked, Daehyun gave the order to move away. They were barely a safe distance when the mining station fell apart completely. If they had been even 2 minutes slower, they would have lost people. But they were not slower. They were fast enough. All 30 miners were safe. The Unity crew had no casualties. It was by any measure a perfect rescue. The kind that should have been impossible. After things calmed down, one of the rescued miners asked to speak with Daehyun. His name was Taiho. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. The other mining stations told us no one was coming. They said we were too far away. They said it was too dangerous. They said we were an acceptable loss. Taiho's voice shook a little. We thought we were going to die. But you came anyway, someone else said. It was a Saurian miner. Her name was hard for humans to pronounce. Why did you come? Daehyun looked at his crew on the bridge. He saw humans and Krillians and Saurians all working together. He saw Victor standing at his station, managing the post-rescue operations with calm efficiency. He saw a new generation that had learned to blend the best of all their species. Because you are not numbers, Daehyun said simply. You are people. And we do not leave our people behind, even when we are not your people? The Saurian asked. Even when we are just miners you do not know? Everyone is our people now. That is what Unity means. The ship's name, the mission, the future we are building. Later, as the miners were being given food and medical attention, Victor approached Daehyun again. Thank you, Commander. For what? For teaching us how to care again? For showing us that compassion is not weakness? For reminding the galaxy that people matter more than calculations? I did not do that alone, Daehyun said. You gave the order today, not me. You are the one who chose to ignore the mathematics. You are the one who said no one gets left behind. I learned it from watching you, from listening to your story. 10 years ago, you ran into an exploding station for one person. Today we flew into danger for 30. Tomorrow, maybe another crew will risk even more for even more people. The ripple keeps spreading, Daehyun smiled. That was exactly right. The ripple was spreading. The lesson was being learned. And the galaxy was slowly becoming a place where people mattered more than profits, where names were more important than numbers, where holding on was valued more than letting go. It had taken 10 years. But the change was real. And it all started because one human refused to accept the unacceptable. 15 years after the Talos 7 incident, the galaxy was different. Not completely changed, but noticeably different. The historians noticed it first. They saw patterns in the data. Rescue missions that should not have been attempted were being attempted. Losses that used to be accepted were no longer acceptable. Ships were taking bigger risks to save smaller numbers of people. At first, the old guard complained. The Krillian admiral said it was inefficient. The Saurian commanders said it was wasteful. The Coalition Council said it was dangerous. They pointed to the costs. Ships damaged, resources spent, time lost. By their calculations, it made no sense. But then someone else pointed out something interesting. Morale was higher than it had been in 100 years. Crews worked better together. Different species trusted each other more. Recruitment was up. People wanted to join an organization that valued life. Even non-human species were choosing to serve in human-led ships. because humans had this strange habit of actually caring. The change was not instant. It took time. Some ships and some commanders still did things the old way. They still made the logical choices. They still accepted acceptable losses. But slowly they became the minority. The new way was becoming the normal way. Daehyun was now an admiral. Yes, that same Daehyun who had been a lieutenant 15 years ago. He had risen through the ranks not because he was the smartest or the strongest, but because people trusted him. Humans trusted him because he was one of them. Aliens trusted him because he had shown them a better way. He still commanded the Unity, but now it was the flagship of a whole fleet. A fleet that included ships from every major species. A fleet that had learned to work together. A fleet that had adopted the human principle. No one gets left behind. Victor was now a captain. He had his own ship, a Krillian vessel called the Resilience, but his ship operated differently than traditional Krillian ships. His crew included humans and other species. He made decisions that his ancestors would have found illogical. He cared more than was efficient. And his ship was one of the most respected in the fleet. Hyun was still flying. She was a pilot instructor now, teaching young pilots from all species. She always told her students the story of Talos 7. She told them about the lieutenant who ran back for her. She told them why it mattered. Many of her students went on to become the kind of pilots who would make the same choice Daehyun made. The ripple kept spreading. One day, Daehyun received a message from Bowman, the old Krillian captain who had questioned him 15 years ago. Bowman was very old now, near the end of his life by Krillian standards. He asked to meet with Daehyun one last time. They met on a space station halfway between their current locations. Bowman looked different, older, slower, but somehow also more peaceful. They sat in a quiet room with a view of the stars. "I wanted to thank you before I die," Bowman said. His translator gave his words a weight that transcended simple meaning. "Thank me? For what? For reminding us who we used to be? For teaching us who we could be again?" Bowman looked out at the stars. "My people have existed for 40,000 years. We have achieved great things. We have survived when other species fell, but we lost something along the way. We became empty. We survived, but we forgot why survival mattered." He turned back to Daehyun. His 4 eyes seemed sad and happy at the same time. "You humans arrived in the galaxy and showed us what we had lost. You showed us that caring is not weakness, that compassion is not inefficient, that the value of a life cannot be calculated." And slowly we remembered. "I just did what felt right," Daehyun said. "I was not trying to change anything. That is why it worked. You did not do it to make a point. You did not do it to teach a lesson. You did it because you could not imagine doing anything else, and that authenticity made all the difference." Bowman reached out and placed a hand on Daehyun's shoulder, just as he had done 15 years ago. "The galaxy is better because of you, because you refused to let go. Because you showed us that holding on, even when logic says to release, is what makes us truly alive." They talked for hours. Bowman shared stories from his long life. Daehyun shared updates about the people they both knew. When it was time to part, they both knew it was probably the last time they would see each other. Bowman was old. His time was ending, but that was okay, because the change he had witnessed would outlive him. The lesson would continue. The ripple would keep spreading. Long after both of them were gone, the galaxy would remember why people mattered more than numbers. Years later, when Daehyun himself was old and gray, he attended a ceremony at the Naval Academy. They were unveiling a memorial. It was not a memorial for the dead. It was a memorial for an idea. The idea that no one should be left behind. The idea that every life matters. The idea that started on a dying mining station 15 years ago. The memorial was simple. It was a statue of 2 figures. One was reaching down. One was reaching up. Their hands were clasped together. One figure was clearly human. The other was deliberately ambiguous, representing all species. Below it were words in every major language of the galaxy. She told him to save himself, but the human refused to let go. Hyun was there for the ceremony. So was Victor. So were hundreds of others whose lives had been touched by that simple choice on Talos 7. Some had been there that day. Some had heard the story and been inspired by it. Some had been saved by someone who had been inspired by it. The ripple had spread far and wide. A young cadet gave a speech. She was Saurian, one of the first of her species to attend the academy. She spoke about how the Talos 7 incident had changed everything. how it had shown the galaxy that there was a better way, how it had proven that compassion was not weakness but the greatest strength of all. After the ceremony, people came to talk to Daehyun. They thanked him. They told him their own stories of being saved or saving others. They told him how his choice had inspired them to make different choices, better choices, choices that valued people over numbers. One person stood out. It was a young Krillian officer. She looked familiar, but Daehyun could not place her at first. "My name is Vera. I am Captain Victar's daughter." She bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. "My father told me to thank you. He said you taught him how to care, and he taught me. Now I teach my crew." The lesson continues. Daehyun felt tears in his eyes. He had not known Victar had children. But of course he did. And of course he taught them the same lessons. That was how change happened. Not in one moment, but in countless small moments spread across years and generations. That evening, Daehyun stood alone in front of the memorial. Everyone else had gone. It was just him and the statue in the quiet night. He looked up at the two figures holding hands. He thought about that moment on Talos 7. The fear, the pain, the impossible choice. The decision to hold on when everyone said to let go. He had not known then what would come from that choice. He could not have predicted how it would spread, how it would change minds and hearts across the galaxy, how it would remind an old tired civilization what it meant to be alive. All he knew then was that Hyun was a real person with a real life and real value, and that value could not be calculated or compared or dismissed. It simply was. And it was worth everything. That was the human way. That was the lesson the galaxy was still learning. That people were not numbers. That compassion was not weakness. That holding on was better than letting go. Always. Hyun came and stood beside him. Neither of them spoke for a long time. They just looked at the memorial. Two figures holding hands. One reaching down, one reaching up. Neither letting go. "Do you ever regret it?" Hyun finally asked. "Your hands hurt sometimes, even now. Your career took a different path than you planned. Do you ever wish you had made the logical choice?" Daehyun shook his head. "Not once. Not even for a second. Even though it cost you?" "It did not cost me. It gave me purpose. It gave me meaning. It gave me the satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing, even when it was hard. That is worth more than any calculation can measure." Hyun took his hand. His scarred, healed, still functioning hand. She squeezed it gently. "Thank you for refusing to let go. Thank you for being worth holding on to." They stood there together as the stars turned overhead. The same stars that had watched humanity take its first steps into space. The same stars that would watch humanity's descendants continue that journey for generations to come. The same stars that had witnessed one simple choice that changed everything. The galaxy had learned something important, something it had forgotten during its long existence. It learned that the most illogical choice is sometimes the most right choice, that the most inefficient action is sometimes the most meaningful action, that the most costly decision is sometimes the most valuable decision. It learned that people matter, that names are more important than numbers, that compassion is strength, that caring is not weakness, that refusing to let go, even when logic demands it, is what makes us truly alive. And it learned all this because one human, on one dying station, made one impossible choice. He chose to hold on. He chose to run back. He chose to refuse the acceptable loss. He chose to save one person when every calculation said he should save 23. And in doing so, he saved far more than one life. He saved the soul of a galaxy. He reminded countless species what they had forgotten. He showed them that there was